Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Get Crystallized show. And on today's show, I have the most amazing guest, Elizabeth Yang. She is an online business strategist and monetization expert, helping purpose-driven, service-based entrepreneurs grow online for consistent revenue in repeatable marketing and sales systems with their teams. She's the founder and CEO of Better With Company, a high-touch business coaching and consulting agency. She is also a mom that gave up her cushy corporate career as the breadwinner to become an entrepreneur herself. And during that first year in business, she lost 20 pounds, not from stress, but from finally prioritizing her well-being for the first time in her life. Kudos to you, Elizabeth. And today, she will share the struggles of leaving behind corporate to being broke that first year of business, to what it really took to scale her business to beyond multiple six figures today. I'm super excited because she's going to share her own self-worth transformation journey with 3 critical shifts to upscaling you, I love this, for legendary living with self-love, visibility, and money, in hopes of inspiring you to upscale you. Please welcome Elizabeth Yang to the show.
Hi, Crystal. I'm super excited that we are finally doing this. This is awesome. Thanks for having me on.
I am the one who is truly honored. I cannot wait to hear your story because in my audience, there may be some women in that boat where you were many years back, where they're in their corporate. And I found that a lot of women have kind of been rediscovering and rethinking their current corporate job, especially over the pandemic, and maybe have that urge to become an entrepreneur themselves, but they are scared. And so I would love for you to start off by sharing your journey. How did you make that transition from your cushy corporate job to now being that successful entrepreneur?
Well, first off, whether it's God or the higher being or powers that be or the universe that you believe in, I think you got to listen to that calling. There's a nudge in your heart. And you don't really quite shake it. It's like you talk yourself out of it. You try to sort of go round and round, and you bring the kids and the family, and you make every excuse you can, making it about someone else, but you just can't shake that nudge. And for me, I became an accidental entrepreneur. For me, it was really a woman who was a co-founder. She reached out, desperate for help. And she was like, Elizabeth, I'm going through everyone that I know. And I really think based on your background, you could help me. And at the time I was in corporate, I was consulting. And when I look back, I really believe it was God that was like laying out the breadcrumbs for me. And at the time, it was really coming from a place of service. And I jumped on a call with her and I said, yeah, if you really think I could help, sure, let's do it. And she told me all of her business symptoms. And I really, truly, genuinely in my heart thought I could really serve. And that's how I really started my business, because she was like, well, how much do you charge? And I was like, I don't know. Maybe I need to be a business now. And the most powerful thing happened was after working with them, 6 months later, they landed their first corporate client.
Wow.
And you would think that would have been like, I mean, I was hooked. You would think that would have been like the start of me being like, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do my own business. But I still wasn't ready to leave corporate yet. And it wasn't until maybe almost 2 years later, a year and a half later, on my 8th year anniversary, where I was on vacation with my family. And my boss at the time literally called me to let me go. And on my 8th year anniversary on vacation, I was laid off and rehired all in the same day. And it was in that moment where I truly realized, looking back, how there had always been that nudge that had always been there. I just wasn't listening. I just wasn't listening. And I took responsibility for everybody else's needs except for my own. And that's what this conversation is all about. It's like, when are you finally going to be enough? When are you finally going to come first? And that's a hard conversation for every woman.
100%. It's, we're speaking of living that legendary life, and that can include perhaps breaking out on your own and starting your own business, or maybe even taking your health seriously for the very first time. And there's a couple of things that you said, all of those years, you put everyone else in front of you. And
Yeah.
that's very, very common, especially for all of our moms who are listening right now. Kids come first, family comes first, job comes first, health is last, dreams are last, or maybe even buried and then forgotten. And
Mhm.
what's really interesting, and I'm a God fearing woman as well.
Yeah.
I truly believe that you're absolutely right. He'll either leave breadcrumbs or open a door. Like for you, one door closed, but another one immediately opened. But there was that perfect transition where you're like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
hold on a second here. this is this is not like a coincidence. Like, God, what are you telling me to do right now? And I love that you you stood firm in that moment. And yes, it took a couple of years, but I want to honor you for listening to that nudge.
Hmm. And it was just one of those things where, like in the beginning, I just it was really scared. I was the main breadwinner. I think we as women go through all of these shoulds. You got happily ever after married, you had the kids, you have the suburban home and the car and it's like all of these things that you should be having. And you almost lose touch of just what it means to be happy, like inside of yourself, like what that meant, you know? And if you're the type of person that loves to be challenged, right? It's really hard. Like I felt really guilty. Like, why wasn't motherhood enough? Why wasn't being a wife enough? Why wasn't, it was like, what is wrong with me if I keep sort of craving that this wasn't yet my purpose, that I was meant for more? Like, why wasn't those dreams fulfilling enough? And the reality is, it just wasn't about them. It was really about me. And
Mm-hmm.
knowing that I am so, as a woman, as a human being, we're so multifaceted. Whether it's God or the universe, He never really meant for you to play small, even as a mom, even as a woman, and even as a human being. And it was really that first year when I finally had the courage to go, like exit. It was corporate. It was like the scariest thing ever because I was making, really good money, six figures or more. And here I was, first year, like as broke as I was when I was first started college with two little kids. Both my kids were probably 7 and 5 at the time. And it
Wow.
was just like the scariest like path ever. And I want to say that my husband, he was very supportive, but he wasn't the breadwinner. You know what I'm saying? And so it took me that time because I planned everything. I saved, I did this, I did that. And I just really thought, yep, once I exit, it's just going to be more side hustling, doing more of what I was doing. And 2 months into that plan, it was like I threw it out the door. It didn't even matter. And that's when I realized that this journey wasn't about a plan or being responsible for other people. What this journey was really about was that I needed to bet on me.
Wow.
And where I found that strength was, I remember, like it was that moment where I literally had like, I was in the shower and, you're trying to hold it together as a woman. You're like trying to just be strong because everyone expects you to be strong. And I remember I was showering and then it was in that moment where I just broke down and cried. And I just remember crying and just keeping it to myself because I just didn't want my babies to hear me cry. I didn't want my husband to hear me cry. And I was just like, what the heck am I doing? Like, what am I doing? This doesn't make logical sense.
Mm-hmm.
But it was really in that moment that I really picked myself up and I said, you know what this is about? This is about betting on me. This is
Wow.
about asking my kids to reach and go after their dreams. But how can I ask of them what I can't even have the courage to ask of myself? You know?
Yes. So powerful. I truly believe that major breakthroughs happen through the breakdowns.
Mm-hmm.
And what a powerful, powerful moment. And you're absolutely right. So many of us, we we want the best for our kids, but we're not necessarily leading, the example. And
No.
so, how did like when did the shifts occur? Because 2 years had passed. You had this moment where you're like, "What am I doing?" So, was it then that the shifts happened, or how did your three shifts to live a legendary life? How did that unfold?
Well, the first one really started with really just self love, right? Like, I think, you know, many times when we decide that we want to start our business, at least in my experience with the women that I've known, it's like you want to be more present with your kids. And really, you want to be more present. You want the flexibility. You want, you know, time on your, you know, terms. And I remember my daughter was probably 5 at the time. And this is like literally like the first year where I was home and I was like working in my business. And she said to me, Mom, since you're just home, could you just come to school and read a book for my birthday? And I remember thinking, wow, you know, I don't remember you doing this last year. And I said to her, how come you didn't ask me last year? And she said to me, Mom, because last year you were busy working in, you know, the company. And I knew you just didn't have time to come read at my school. But now that you have your business at home, like you could just come because the school is literally like 5 minutes away. And I just remember, like, in that moment of self love and self compassion, right? Wanting to be present with my children, was how self aware they truly are. That she had the ability to filter out that my mom couldn't come to read at my school because she had a job that she needed to go to and she was too busy, right? But because I had made the intention to be present at home, she had the courage to ask me. And it's just simply an invitation, right? And I realized in that path of first self love is that you, to be the woman, the mom, the human being that you want to be, you've got to create space to receive it. And for me, it was being a present mom, it was being a present woman, it was really me truly learning to love myself again. And the health became such a big piece because it was no longer about losing weight to look good, but it was really about stamina and the energy to show up and do the deep work, to show up. And I had more time than I ever did, but the money wasn't there yet. But it was really the stamina to show up on calls with energy. It was the
Yes.
stamina to show up and be just full of energy and just be able to speak, you know, on stages and do the workshops. It was like, it was literally like being an athlete, and I wasn't one growing up. Right? And so that whole journey was really about self-love, just trying to figure out like who I was again and who am I trying to be as a mom, as a CEO, as a woman. And that was really the biggest shift to legendary living, was that it was a journey back to me. And it was what I think a lot of women go through in terms of self-love, but it is so hard, Crystal, to receive. Like self-love isn't just about pampering yourself. It's
Yes.
like being able to really truly receive and feel worthy enough that your kids, your partner, the people in your life are just loving you because you're just who you are. There's no condition to that.
Yes.
And it's so hard. It was so hard for me, at least, you know.
I know um, my audience can definitely resonate with you because there is this when they hear self-love, there's almost like this, like it's guilt, like there's this guilt feeling. And what I'm hearing is that self-love and self-care is not selfish.
No,
In
it's
fact,
not.
self-love helped you to become fully present, both physically and I'm sure energetically with your kids, and then with the clients that you serve. So self-love and self-care is not selfish.
It's not.
And
And that's so hard for so many women because it's almost like a contradiction, right? Selfish and self-love. I don't want to be selfish, right?
yes,
But for me, my challenge was because I didn't want to be selfish, I was taking responsibility for other people. I was taking responsibility for other people's happiness, right? Like my kids didn't have to tell me what they were dissatisfied with because I knew them so well that I would just nurture and just make them happy without them even asking. And it was that moment where I realized that it's not about being selfish, it's about protecting, you know, who I am so that my kids, my partner, my family really remember like who is Elizabeth, the woman, the individual. Like she once upon a time was an independent woman. You know, she was once upon a time fun to hang out with. Like who is she? Right? She
yes,
wasn't just like the mom, you know?
yes.
And
Yeah,
it
we were absolutely more than just a mom. And you're right, like so many of us complete the shoulds and live inside that box and are feeling unfulfilled. And so I can totally hear you and resonate that, yeah, we're more than a mom, we're more than a wife, we're even more than a business owner. it's really like what I resonate with you is um, just being fully present and full of energy,
Yeah.
full of energy.
100%. I mean,
Mhm.
like, think about it, right? Like, as a mom, you are going to teach your daughter how to be a woman. And for your sons, you're going to teach your sons how to love a strong, independent, amazing, powerful woman, right?
Yes.
And for me, it was that aha moment where it's like, where am I? Who are my kids going to learn how to be a woman or how to love a type of woman like this? Like, I have a son and a daughter. It's going to come from me. It's going to come from the partnership in my marriage. It's going to come, like, I have to show them that it's not just about how to be mom, but how to be a woman and how to love a woman like me. Like, where is that going to come from? And it's really through leading by example. Like, how can I ask of my kids what I cannot even ask of myself, right?
So
Like,
good.
if I can't even find that courage inside of me, how can I lead them? How can I coach and guide them? How can I like pick them up one day when they are knocked down and they feel like they have no other options? You know what I'm saying? We've all been there. And I realized that this is really about self-love to me because it truly makes me a better mom. It really does, you know?
So, so good. So how did that then, what do you mean by visibility? What do you mean that about that becoming a part of your legendary living?
Well, the second one, the first path was really self love. And I know that I shared this with you is that on the other side of self love, I have found that self love is a lifelong journey. But now that I've been on this path a lot further along, I feel like on the other side is self thrive. And it's really when you're able to step into what I call your earning power, right? For me, self love is a journey back to maybe self empowerment and boundaries. And beyond that, it's really about claiming the money that you want.
Mm,
Now, I think a lot of women, we feel maybe there's a contradiction to money, whether you're working as a professional or you own your own business. But I thought I was empowered until I embraced my economic earning power. And that's what awaits you on the other side of self love. It's self thrive. It's this ability to believe that all of a sudden your self worth isn't so much anchored on money alone, but that you can actually manifest and create the money that you want, whether it's the courage to negotiate your salary or the ability to create products and services that people are willing to pay for. It really empowers you at a totally different level. And for me, it was like I was no longer apologetic about what's on the other side of self love, which I call a self thrive. It's the ability to not only, it's like a ripple effect. It's like you start to realize that now that you've become empowered and you've stepped into your earning power, that there's this ripple effect that you're rubbing off on, you know, family and friends, your inner circles. And they're like, you look kind of different. I can't really pinpoint what it is. It's not just that you're making more money, but you just show up so differently and it's so contagious, you know?
I love that self thrive. When you first shared with me, I'm like, oh, that is gold right there because you're absolutely right. You know, a lot of the times, like I work with women in the health industry, and that can tie into their low self confidence, and they wouldn't even dare cross the other side.
Yeah.
You know, they either feel unworthy, or the train of thought, the common train of thought is, when I lose the 50 pounds, then I'll,
Then I'll
ask
be
for the
happy.
promotion.
Yeah.
Then I'll be happy. Then I'll go for the promotion. Then I'll, you know, so what would you say to that? Like, how would you encourage that woman, like, to take that leap? Because, I mean, yes, you had that 2 year kind of gap, but point is, you jumped.
Yeah.
You jumped even though you had no idea. You jumped even though you were the breadwinner. You jumped even though it may have been scary. Looking at that edge of that cliff, you jumped anyway. So if someone listening right now is resonating with you, but they're literally standing at the edge, what would you say to her?
Well, here's the thing, we're constantly waiting for certainty and confidence, right? And some people just have confidence naturally. I wasn't one of those people. And one of the things that I've learned about confidence is it comes with confidence. You do it over and over again, and that's how you get really confident around things, right? When you have to take a crazy leap of faith, whether it's starting your business or asking for that promotion, you've got to tap into courage. And I often say that there's a difference between courage and confidence. Confidence, you can be certain and confident because the outcomes are predictable. You have done it so many times that you are attached to the outcomes and you know what's going to happen. And I think too many of us are waiting for that. We're waiting to feel confident to work out, to lose weight. And maybe in the past, we've been disappointed because the results weren't there, but logically we know what it takes, right? And I often say that what we have to tap into is courage. Courage is where you're not attached to the outcome. Actually, in fact, the outcomes could actually be really negative for you. It feels like courage feels like you stepping up into your values, right? When you see a child that maybe in the street is crossing the street with an adult there, you don't stop and logically say, I'm gonna just figure this out. No, your heart is like, oh my God, it's crazy, I need to just do this, run across the street and help that kid cross the street. But you're not attached to the outcome. Or maybe you're in the workplace and you see that something isn't right, but in your heart it's not really the right thing to do. You're going to step up and you're going to say something. And I think when we are attached to our values and we remember that that's really where our courage comes from, the outcomes are always in our favor because we can still walk with our head held high, that at the end of the day, we walked very aligned to our values. And for me, that's been the biggest thing, because now that my kids are 14 and 12, and I've been, an entrepreneur for so many years now, I see the values that that's imprinting on them. It's really about the actions and the struggles that they've seen that has given them so much more courage than I think I could ever teach them. It's seeing me in action and giving and seeing that courage in action that's made a huge difference.
That is so beautiful. That difference between courage and confidence. I love that. I love how when you are courage, it's in line with your highest values, and therefore you're detached to the outcome. And I think it was Wayne Dyer who said, "Be open to everything and attached to nothing."
Yeah.
And I absolutely resonate with that, because so many women, they're waiting to be confident. And sometimes that waiting, like it's a lifetime, and they don't listen to that intuition or listen to that calling, or and be courageous and jump anyway. And so I really love that.
It feels like courage is really big, but I often say, like, you got to lead with your heart and just know that your mind will catch up. You know what I'm saying? Lead with your heart and your mind will catch up. I mean, like, even me, when I'm working with, a new trainer or a new expert, I'm super nervous. Like, I don't know if it's going to be, how the outcomes are going to be. I don't know how reliable I can be with working out, right? Because I know my own limitations. But I think the first challenge is to say, you know what? I am worthy of partnering or working with someone like Crystal, who is the expert. I am worthy of making that investment in myself. And I'm going to show up and I'm going to be vulnerable with someone like Crystal. And I'm going to say, you know what? This is what I think are my biggest challenges with health. Like, I know what they are, and you're the expert. Like, how can you partner with me to help me overcome them? And I think it's that worthiness of, I'm coming to the table knowing what I'm really good at and what I'm not, and I got to be vulnerable. And I'm taking this leap of faith, courage, that that you're going to help me kind of get to the other side together. And that takes courage to put yourself out there. Courage isn't something like, like jumping into a burning house. This is really courage in terms of being vulnerable, but also owning your strength and saying, you know what, I am worthy to receive. It's just a work in progress, and I'm getting there.
And it's a continual journey. It's a beautiful thing. I love that. Where, creating that awareness that being vulnerable is actually, I believe, and I'm sure you do too, a sign of strength. Because how else are you going to get stronger if you don't have someone help you work on those weaknesses or obstacles that you're facing, that maybe you've tried all the things yourself and you're like, okay, wait a minute here. Maybe I'm not the expert and I should maybe hire someone who is to help me overcome this. I love that. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where I've seen like the biggest breakthroughs, right? Is where you have to just admit that defeat in certain areas just aren't your strength, and be willing to say, but you know what? I'm still worthy of of the transformation. I'm still worthy of figuring out like if this is for me. And you're still worthy of the investment in yourself. And
Yes.
there is no, I mean, I personally think there isn't a bad or good coach. I think every coach, every expert I've worked with, whether it's been a good experience or a bad experience, it's truly up leveled me. It's made me better. It's made me clear in terms of my values, right? Like, I'm like, oh, that didn't sit well with me. Why? Well, it's because this is what I really value. And I
Yes.
get that now. You know what I'm saying? And it's really when you're able to truly balance self-love with self-thrive and you're not apologetic about it, you know. And I think especially we're talking to moms, our I often say our kids, they don't listen to what we tell them, but they learn our values by watching us in action. And I
Oh,
think
they definitely are watching. They're
right, you know how it's like,
watching.
oh, mom, you said this, but you just did that, and they call you out. Like, you weren't supposed to say that. Right.
Exactly. Exactly. And how in my world, they watch how you fuel yourself. They watch what your relationship with food is like. They watch if you exercise daily. They watch even just your attitude. Are you loving and caring, or are you angry and snapping at them? They see all of it and absorb all of it. So yeah, I love that. You're absolutely right. Our kids are watching, and we want to set that example. So we've covered self love. We talked about self thrive, and we touched a little bit upon your the empowerment, like earning your worth. So many women, I do believe, and we touched upon a little bit where um, I don't know, is it a man's world still out there in the corporate world? And how do we change that? Or even for those business owners or entrepreneurs not feeling scared of actually putting out, what your the transformation and the result that you provide, what it's actually worth. Because I'll admit I've crossed that road myself. So how would you, for someone is, for example, whether it's asking for that promotion, or they have a service that transforms lives in whatever way, but there's fear in putting that value that they know it's worth, but they're afraid. And so they're almost battling with their own unworthiness. What would you say to them?
I think, especially with women, whether you're working in corporate or you have your own business, we tie a lot of our self-worth and our identity to the money that we're making, right? Whether it's the salary that you're earning or how much you're charging in your business. And the reality is, I don't believe that you should charge your worth. I think that when you do the deep work of self-love and self-thrive, you start to realize that what you know and who you are, you're actually priceless. Like there isn't a money an amount that someone could place on you, you know? And when you kind of do that deep work to be like, you know what, I'm priceless and my power comes not in how much I'm charging or commanding, but my power comes from how I'm leading with my heart or my values. My power comes from the courage that I'm having to negotiate my salary or command higher pricing in my businesses because I believe that when I am empowered and I am commanding more, that I'm also empowering others to also invest in themselves. And
Mhm.
I think when you look at it from that lens, then what charging more and claiming the money that you want, there's less guilt about it. When I was in corporate, I did a lot of work with closing the salary equity gap. And now as an entrepreneur, I'm finding that even female entrepreneurs are charging about 30% less than their male counterparts. And it's because we continue to tie our validation, our self worth through the money that we're making or the money that we're earning. But the reality is that that's a very masculine metric, right? And I
Mm.
like to say this, right? Like we women need to flip like ROI. We need to start measuring our performance on how much we're leading with heart and value, right? Like if once we realize that we're leading with heart, we're leading with value, and we're leading with the intention of empowering others, then money really is the after effect. So for example, when I started my business, I did one-on-one coaching, 1 hour coaching, 3-month programs, all the way now to what I'm doing high ticket now. And I realized that money became a really great indicator of the way that people showed up with their commitment
So
and
true.
their like commitment and their investment in themselves. It wasn't about the money in terms of working with me. It became the more that you spent, right? Like a $200 course versus a $2,000 program versus a $20,000 program, your
Yes.
level of commitment is like different.
Yes. You show up differently.
You show up differently. Money reveals people's priorities. And this is true in corporate and it is true in our business, right? When your manager in corporate wants to keep you, guess what they're doing? They're pulling out all the stops with the bonuses and the promotions and things like that. And
So
and
true.
yeah, right. And then in our business, it's the same thing too. And so when you realize that money just reveals people's priorities, and it's simply up to you to align what you value and your priorities to the money that's circulating out there, just simply waiting for you to claim it, that it's not really about charging your worth because you've already done the deep work to realize that you're priceless, in fact. And that what you're bringing is really the courage and the experience and the talent that leading with heart that no one else can really do because they haven't done that deep work. I often say that many of us who can lead with heart, we've often experienced more hardships than maybe our peers, and it allows us to just have bigger hearts and bigger capacity for compassion. And that's really hard to come by. It's very rare to come by in corporate and as an entrepreneur. And I think the more that you realize that that's actually an asset that you bring to the table that really helps with your marketing message, and really, promoting yourself, in the corporate workplace, that's really where, claiming the money that you want to make really comes in. And when I talk about legendary living, it's living your life in a way where you're making the impact that you want to make without the money all being there, without the $1 million sitting in your bank account already. It's like, are you making decisions where you feel like you're leaving your legacy every day if something was to happen tomorrow to you? You know, I struggle with my sweet tooth, and I often say to my daughter, mom has an extra stomach for dessert, but mom's working on trying to just live healthier because I want to model that for you. And I know you're 12 and you have a great metabolism, but we need to kind of dial in on the sweets, right? And it's just like, for me, it's like that is legendary living. It's saying, this is what I'm struggling with, but I want to show up for you and show you that there's a better way, and we're going to figure it out together. But you're not waiting for that money to be there. You're not waiting for the $1 million to be at the bank account before you can show up and be happy. You know what I'm saying?
That is so beautiful. Again, talking about that open to everything, attached to nothing, and just I love how it's so value based, so heart based, self love, self thrive. And I want to put this on a shirt because it's so beautiful. You are priceless.
You
Because
are.
because that's one of the things that we as women always have to remind ourselves. Because so many of us, and you've touched upon it throughout our conversation today, where we feel unworthy. And we need to remind ourselves how priceless we are so that we can show up as the best mom, as the best wife, as the best, manager, business owner that we can be. And so I want to thank you. There were so many nuggets. I'm literally going to listen to this podcast about another 20,000 more times because I know this is one where every single time I listen to it, I'm going to learn something else, and I'm gonna learn another thing and another thing. And I just want to thank you. You are such a godsend. I truly believe that. I'm so happy that you followed your calling, that you finally took pieces of those bread crumbs and you took that leap of faith and jumped. And because I know so many people are going to um, be blessed with what you do and how you serve and how you teach. I know this has been a blessing for me. So I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for all of those amazing nuggets that you just shared.
Thanks for having me, Crystal. And, for your audience that's listening, right? Like, I want to just really encourage you to go through that journey of self love, but don't stop there. Challenge yourself. Like, what's on the other side of self love? Self thrive. Claim that. And then claim your earning power, right? It's not just a path back to empowerment for you, but it's the fact that we women, we have a ripple effect. And when we're able to claim our power, claim our empowerment, and claim our earning power, we empower others around us to thrive. And we cannot be apologetic for that, especially if you're a mom, especially if you're thinking about like, how can I raise my kids to be these amazing human beings that just really live life to the fullest and go after their dreams? They're watching us. They're watching us. So claim that. Claim that what you want for yourself, because it is just waiting for you to show up, be visible, and claim it. And I know it's scary, but you're not alone in that. So, self-love, claim it, self-thrive, claim it, claim your earning power, and really find that courage to really lead with your heart. Your mindset will follow. It always the lack.
100%. I normally ask, like, what is your legacy? I think you just summed it up right there. That is your legacy. So if we have someone in the audience who wants to work with you, that you've just kind of either touched that nerve in a good way, when you're like, you know what, I need more of Elizabeth. Where can they find you, and where can they if they want to work with you?
So you can go to elizabethyang.biz or just connect with me for a conversation on talkwithelizabeth.com. For me, I'm all about empowering more women to charge more, because the more that you're able to charge more, the more that you can bring cash flow in, and you can start really hiring help. And that's probably one of the second challenges we female entrepreneurs face, is asking for help and doing that in a way that's really meaningful. So that's probably the best way to connect with me.
Oh, so good. Talkwithelizabeth.com. Book that call, have that conversation. I know I have been blessed with this conversation, and I'm actually going to connect with you as well, because we need to talk.
Let's talk money, right? Let's talk money.
Yes,
and let's talk about self-love, and let's talk about, I always say this, right? Like, we need to talk about money, ladies, because we have to self-fund not just our dreams, but really like the better world that we all want, especially now, right now. So don't be afraid to self-fund your dreams and those that you care of.
Let's claim it. I'm with you. So Elizabeth, thank you so much. I'm going to have you again, because there were so many nuggets in here. I know that you've got pearls, even more pearls of wisdom. So I'm going to have you back, but I want to say thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing how to live that legendary life. And again, if you want to work with her, talkwithelizabeth.com, book that call, and let's live that life that we absolutely deserve, because we are priceless. Absolutely. So thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
Until next time, guys, we'll see you on the next episode of the Get Crystallized Show. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.